everybody. Great to be back on another Friday. This week on Sportsbook Confidential, can the Orange compete in Death Valley? We'll look at the SU matchup, and also in today's Sportsbook Confidential lesson, we're going to talk about touting and what touts are and why you should never pay for picks. Hello, everybody. My name's John Sullivan, and this program here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And, of course, we also look at all the upcoming action in the weekend of sports, and we'll talk about what bets you might want to make. So let's get right into it. So as we do every week, we update our bankroll, and let's take a look at what we did last week before we move on to all the new stuff this week. And you can see I started last week with a bankroll of $778, and we had 5 plays, which is kind of a lot for me. I tried to be very selective in my picks, and we didn't have a great week. As a matter of fact, we only won 2 of our 5. We had the Montreal Alouettes under in the Canadian Football League, and that won us a profit of 25. Stanford under. That game went to overtime. That was kind of a tough beat, minus $26 there. We had the Bills over, and the Bills scored 24 points in the first 20 minutes of the game, and that couldn't get over 41, so we lost $26 there. We had the Chargers plus 7.5, and they kept it close, but not close enough. Another loss. And then last Sunday night, we had the under on the Patriots game, under 53.5. And that was an easy win for us. So if you do the math there, and it comes out to my new bankroll is right where I started at $750. So divide that by 30, and our bet size going forward this week is going to be $25. So we're right back where we started, but it's a process, and there'll be lots of ups and downs, and I hope you'll see how it all turns out. So before we get into this week's games, let's have our sportsbook lesson for the day. And today's lesson is all about touts. And you can see the graphic I've put up on the screen here is just say no to touts. And we're going to talk about what a tout is and what a tout service is and why you really want to avoid them, no matter how lucrative it may sound. So a tout is also known as a pick seller. It's someone who offers winning picks to sports bettors in exchange for money, in exchange for payment. And to be very blunt and succinct in talking about this topic, I will just go out and say the problem with touting is that no one under any circumstances can guarantee that their pick will win. I make picks on the show every week. I cannot guarantee they will win. I'm telling the people that watch the show to be selective and make informed decisions. And, if you bet sports even if you just do it for fun, for entertainment, you want to have a profit motive because it's going to make your money last longer if you're not worried about whether you're going to win or not. And if you do want to win, there's reasons why you should not buy from a tout, and the biggest one is, as I have up on the screen there, beginning bettors will hurt their bankrolls by paying for picks. And if you stop and think about it for a second, if you're starting with a bankroll like I was on the show, $750, if you have to pay $50 for a pick or a set of picks, you're wiping out, 2 out of your 30 bets just paying for that pick. And then if that pick loses on top, you just wiped out 10% of your bankroll. It's a very dangerous game to play. And there are no beginning bettor under any circumstances should be paying for picks. Touts use slick marketing tactics to make them sound extremely profitable. A common tactic is, I'm 7-2 over my last 9 picks, or my Monday night games that are on grass, my last 25 picks are 21-4, and those trends or those circumstances are meaningless to the game that's coming up that day. So they'll cherry pick. Another strategy is cherry pick lines that move. I try to tell you when I make my picks, I say I have this game at, this spread -8, and if it goes to -10, I wouldn't play it. I try to give that caveat to people so they can make informed decisions. Somebody will sell you a pick, on a Sunday morning that says the Bills +10, and then you go to make the bet, and you can only get 7 or 7.5, and you've sunk the money into that pick, and it's not helpful. They cherry pick the lines. Some touts will even go as far as to give out both sides of a game, half to one half of their customer base and half to the other. They'll say the Bills are playing the Packers this week, so half of them will give out the Bills +10, half of them will get the Green Bay -10. And the theory behind that from the pick seller side is that he's always going to make half of his customer base happy and come back for more. So it's very shady business, and sometimes it's outright fraudulent. People that sell picks, they'll take credit cards and they'll continually charge your credit card, even if you tell them you don't want to, and you dispute a charge, and they'll just keep trying to do it over and over and over again once they have that information. And they'll ask for payment in other ways. They'll ask you to send them money orders or actually send you cash through a FedEx or something like that. It's really disgusting to me that people actually fall for that. So bottom line is never pay for picks. No matter what, never pay for picks. If anybody that is smart enough to know whether to pay for picks or not, they are further along in the sports betting game than I am. I'm always learning, and I've been doing this for a long time, but that's primo. If there were 10 commandments of sports betting, this would be one of them: never pay for picks. So from time to time, I'm going to point out specific examples of touts behaving badly, but just never pay for picks. I'll also, in the future, talk about how what information is available to sports bettors, and there's tons of great free information for you to use to help you make decisions in sports betting. And we'll talk about what's out there and model building, crowdsourcing, things like that, and that'll happen over time. That's more of the math side of things. I think I hear a train. Woo woo. So that's it for our lesson today. Never pay for picks. And let's move forward to the games this week, and we'll start with the college games. And of course, the big game this week is Syracuse at Clemson, 2 4-0 teams. And it's in Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina. Apparently, this is the largest spread ever for two undefeated Division I teams in Power 5. And we have Clemson currently as minus 25.5 favorites with a total of 65. And I got to tell you, I've heard every angle on this game. From Syracuse is going to go beat them again. They know something the other teams don't know. I've heard this is a revenge game for Clemson, and they're going to try to run up the score. They need a big win against Syracuse to get the rankings up for the college playoff. There's no question that the winner of this game has an inside track to the ACC title. But I'm looking at this game from a betting point of view, and if you think Syracuse has a chance in this game, you have to like both the point spread and the over. I feel like the over is really fair game here, 65.5. you definitely think both of these teams can score 30, and it's just a matter of one extra score after that. So I don't really have an official play on this game. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of money on the Syracuse spread, and there's always the I actually don't know if you can place a money line bet. I don't think they've released the odds. That usually means they don't want a lot of money on one side or the other if they wait to put out a money line line on this game. So usually with a spread this big, they wait till game day. So everybody's excited to watch this game. I hope it's competitive, and I lean towards the Syracuse side. I definitely lean towards the over here, but not a play for me. Moving on to top 10 matchups. We have Ohio State at Penn State in the Big Ten, and Urban Meyer's back for Ohio State. And Penn State has had a couple of impressive wins, but they did have that big scare the first week against Appalachian State, and they're currently 3-point underdogs, the total 70.5. I got to tell you, Ohio State could win this game by 20. Penn State could win this game by 7, 10. I don't know. This game really, I have no read on it. Ohio State has not been impressive to me. They won against TCU, but I haven't seen them, just with a dominant performance against another top 25 team. This total is probably about right. Ohio State, both of these teams can score points. It's just I feel like this game, if it gets close, it's going to be more of a grind them out possession style game where a team is going to want to hold on to the ball in the second half. So I kind of lean under here. I really don't, if I had to pick a side, I'd pick Ohio State -3, but I don't like that game at all. I am interested to see what happens. Seems like the Big Ten is kind of down this year, so I'm interested to see how that game pans out. But another pass for me. And then in the evening game, we have the Irish of Notre Dame against Stanford, Irish at home in South Bend. And very big game for both the Pac-12 and Notre Dame for playoff hopes. Notre Dame's rest of their schedule is not very strong. The Pac-12 is considered to be not very strong conference this year. And Stanford had a big comeback win on the road against Oregon. I watched that game last week, and I really thought my under was going to pull through there, but it didn't happen. So we have Notre Dame as 5.5 favorites, and the total is 53. Now, both of these teams have stellar defenses, so I like the under in this game. 55 I'd like a lot better than 53. But Stanford scored, when they needed to last week. But I think these back-to-back primetime road games is going to be tough for them. I really like the Irish to win this game. I don't know if they're going to cover, but I definitely lean under here. And I was thinking about making this my pick this week, but I decided to pass because the next game is going to be my pick this week, and that's back to the SEC, but it's South Carolina at Kentucky. And the SEC East is a hot mess right now, but Kentucky is sitting at 4-0 or 3-0, 4-0, and although they've played 3 games at home, they get another game at home against South Carolina, and the line is pick 'em, which really has me scratching my head. I feel like this is a trap game. It's South Carolina's played well, but it's a tough travel game for them. 51.5, I think that's going to go over. But my play here, maybe it's a sucker play, but my pick for this week in college is Kentucky at home. The game's a pick 'em, so it's straight up, no point spread. And it would be a great, almost guaranteed Kentucky a bowl game, which is nice, but it would definitely put them on the inside track for the SEC title game where they can get crushed by Alabama. So good for them, good for their program. I expect that to be a competitive game, but looking forward to seeing how they do as we go through Saturday. And let's just keep moving on and move right on to our pro games this week. And as you know, I got to have a CFL pick every week. So if you want to bet on football tonight, we've got Toronto Argonauts at the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary favored by 14 points at home and 53. I said last week that I didn't think a team would cover a double-digit spread. It hadn't covered a double-digit spread in the CFL. And sure enough, that Winnipeg did against Montreal last week. But my under did hit. And this week, I also like the under. It's all unders today. Here's the reason why. Toronto obviously is on their third quarterback this season, and he's actually pretty good, McLeod Bethel-Thompson. So, however, as of the last time I checked, which was yesterday, Toronto did not have a healthy kicker. And in the CFL, first of all, usually most teams have one kicker that handles both kicking and punting and kickoffs. Some teams have two that do the duty separately. And Ronnie Pfeffer was injured, and they tried Zach Medeiros, and they let him go. And they tried somebody out on Tuesday, and they didn't like him, and they didn't sign him. So I am not sure what the kicker status is for Toronto, and that spells really bad news for them because you can stay in a game in the CFL with field goals and singles. You probably don't even know what a single is, but it's a way to score 1 point off a kickoff, a field goal, or a punt. And, 2 field goals and a single is the same as a touchdown. So Calgary has one of the best defenses in the league. I feel they're super tough to beat at home. I don't like the 14 points, but I can see this being like a 35-14 game, if that. So I like the under here, and that's going to be a play for me. So that's it for the CFL this week. Let's move on to the weekend in the NFL. Boy, what a game last night, huh? That was there were no roughing the passer penalties, I noticed. But, boy, what a bunch of offense. Very different from a lot of the games last week. So let's see what we got. We got the Bills visiting Green Bay. And this line, I think, has moved a little bit since last night. It was 10 points. I think it's down to 9.5, and the total's 45. Tough for the Bills to keep this momentum on the road 2 weeks in a row. From what I've read, Aaron Rodgers is only 80%. I don't know what that means. Is his leg only 80%? There's an issue with him being able to throw the ball if he can't plant his feet. And the other issue is both the field in Green Bay and the field in Washington last week was their grass. And when the sod is torn up like it was in Washington, he couldn't plant his feet and he had trouble throwing the ball. So I think that the Bills have proven they're a better defense than they were in the first 2 weeks. They definitely have to limit their turnovers. On the Packers side, Randall Cobb is out. He's on the IR. He did me wrong last week in fantasy. But this is a tough game to pick. I think it's kind of appropriately lined. The Bills could cover. I think it's going to be tough for them to win outright, but I could see them keeping it at a 7-point game. I kind of lean towards the over, but this game's a pass for me. Moving on to our New York teams, the Jets are off to face the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jets are currently 7.5 underdogs, and the total is 38.5. And this is a game, when I see a 38 total in the NFL, I immediately think about playing the over. But I'm passing on the over here because just like in the CFL game, the Jaguars kicker, Josh Lambo, has a hip problem and he's questionable to play. I honestly do not know who they have, if they have somebody on the practice squad or if they're going to sign somebody last minute. I don't know what that's all about, but if you do not have a solid kicking game or your expected kicking game, I definitely am staying away from the over situation here. On to the actual game. If you saw the Jaguars game last week, it was a 9-6 game against the Titans. They just didn't have any offensive flow. And both of their running backs, Yeldon and Fournette, have been struggling through injuries. I expect one of them, if not both of them, to play, but who knows if they're 100%. So the Jets, even their bad games, have kept all the games close. Their biggest loss was by 8 points. So I am taking the Jets as one of my first NFL play, plus 7.5 against the Jaguars, and hoping that the good Sam Darnold, shows up this week. Moving on to the New York Football Giants, they are hosting the Saints after coming off a win against the Texans last week, and they're lined at 3.5-point underdogs. And the Giants have definitely been a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. They looked really awful against the Cowboys, and then they looked really good against the Texans, and we got the total of 50. And the Saints score a lot of points and they give up a lot of points, and that's why the total's 50. But the Giants' defense is actually decent, and I feel like they will play a conservative game to try and minimize the damage by the Saints' offense. So I really like the under in this game. I'm not going to bet it. If it went up a couple of points, over 51, say, I would really consider it. And the Giants that's a very tempting line, 3.5 points. They stayed within 5 of Jacksonville, and they really didn't have much of a game against the Cowboys. But, the Saints haven't been able to put anybody away. I feel like they can keep this game close. So not strong enough feel on either one of those lines to make a wager here. But I expect a close game. And the two games I do like that are not involving the local teams, Sunday afternoon we have the 49ers at the Chargers. I don't know why the Chargers keep ending up in my plays every week, but the 49ers lost Jimmy Garoppolo for the season last week, and Beathard is their backup who started a few games last year. And this game is currently lined at 10.5, and I honestly don't believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is worth 7.5 points to a point spread. The Chargers' defense is not that good. Joey Bosa looks like he's out for the year. They give up points. So I feel like the Chargers will win this game, and I'm not really sure about the total. I don't know what to expect out of San Francisco, whether they're going to go tempo or play more conservative. However, I feel like they can keep this game within 10 points. I really do. If this line goes up another point, I feel strongly about it and may probably bet it, but not an official play because I'm trying to be selective. But I really like the 49ers plus 10.5 here. It's a West Coast game. They have a solid running game. They have decent receivers if they're all healthy. Beathard is kind of a game manager. He won't, just give the game away. So I expect that game to be closer than 10 points. And then finally on Monday night, we have the red hot Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos in an AFC West matchup. And what haven't you heard about the Kansas City Chiefs and their quarterback and all their talent? And the Denver Broncos have been struggling to score points, but they have a very good defense, and they're very tough to play at home and Mile High, whatever it's called these days. I'm not sure what the new naming rights are. But the Broncos are 4.5-point underdogs, and they could easily lose this game by 10. But I feel like this total is way off. 56 is a lot of points. The Chiefs cannot keep up the scoring pace that they've kept up for the last 3 weeks forever. It's just going to drop off at some point. That's the way it goes. So is this the week? It sure looks like it. You're playing at high altitude. You are playing a very good defense, a division rival who's probably well prepared for what you're going to throw out there. I think this has gone down to 55, but if you can still get it at 56, I would definitely play it. This is definitely one of my plays this week. The Chiefs and Broncos under 56. So those are the college and pro games that I have for this week. And let's quickly move on to our fantasy picks for the week. And I just want to point out that the Chiefs game is on Monday, so these fantasy picks are just for Sunday. And surprise, surprise, this week at quarterback, I'm going with Baker Mayfield. I was so impressed with him last Monday night coming in the game. I feel like he has a tremendous opportunity to put up fantasy points this week against a lackluster Oakland defense in what should be a good weather game, obviously. You could see that Tyrod had a bad game, Tyrod Taylor. He's played better. But when Baker Mayfield came in the game, you could see that he could make the reads of the defense that Tyrod Taylor could not make. You could see him scan the defense, make a throw, make the play, move the chains. Tyrod could not do that. So I think he takes the Browns to another level. And maybe they just didn't want to put him out there so quickly. But he can run. He doesn't lack confidence. And I think that's a great matchup for him this week. Moving on to running back, we have Melvin Gordon with the Chargers. That's kind of my go-to guy. Although he is losing some targets to Eckler, I think is the other running back in San Diego. Doesn't matter. He'll get the goal line touches. I like a lot of points in that game this week. James Conner for Pittsburgh is taking over Le'Veon Bell's role in the Pittsburgh offense, and you kind of have to take him with all the touches he's going to get. Now, moving on to the wide receivers, Jarvis Landry for the Browns is my matchup receiver to go with Baker Mayfield. He seems like the number one target for him. I'm going with Odell Beckham this week, even though the Saints, are expected to score a lot of points. I think Odell Beckham has a great matchup against the Saints. Their secondary is not very good. And I think this is going to be a breakout game for him and kind of save Eli Manning's, the whispers on is he washed up and maybe they need to find somebody else. I'm taking Deshaun Jackson, Tampa Bay playing Chicago, I believe. And that's, Chicago's secondary is not very good. They have a great front seven with Khalil Mack and the pass rush. But if Fitzmagic can get the passes off, I feel like Deshaun Jackson can get some deep completions. T.Y. Hilton, the Texans looked awful last week, and Andrew Luck gets a home game. So I look for him to get some good looks. And Tyler Lockett, wide receiver and return guy for the Seattle Seahawks. Great matchup against Arizona, which is just a mess. Look for him to get some big plays this week. The tight end, Benjamin Watson for the Saints. I think he gets a lot of looks, value pick. And for defense, I'm going with the Steelers against the Ravens. That's always a big battle, low-scoring type of game. So let's wrap it up this week, and let me put up my picks. And let's see what we got here. Toronto and Calgary, under 53, minus 106. Kentucky Pick'em, minus 106. Chiefs and Browns on Monday night, under 56, minus 107. And for those of you that stayed through the whole show, a bonus for you at the end. Tonight at midnight, if you're an insomniac and if you want something to watch, the Aussie Rules League has their grand final. It's the Aussie Rules Super Bowl. And it's the West Coast Eagles against the Collingwood Magpies at the Melbourne Cricket Grounds. And my pick on this game, these two teams are very evenly matched. They're high-scoring teams, is the over 160.5. So check it out if you're up that late. It's a fun sport to watch. Won't start back up till next year. But that's it for our program. And thanks for watching. We're right at 30 minutes, and I'm going to play the outro music. And have a good weekend. Get some winners. Appreciate it.